Hi there, my name's Anthony, and I'm the Consulting Engineer for Education in the EMEA region here at Jamf. And today we're going to have a look at learning anywhere at any time using iPad and Jamf School. Let's first start by having a talk around device management in schools in general. Like with any project, there are multiple stakeholders in any kind of project, and that's not any different really with IT. But most device management tools are designed primarily for IT departments. That creates a bit of a disconnect between the intended classroom use and the experience that teachers have with devices. Teaching staff often lack the autonomy and flexibility of the devices to make a real impact in their classroom. And many management solutions don't really empower the user to be creative and can often be disruptive to the device users. And if your iPads do go home, often parents have little say in how the devices are used at home for learning and just generally at home at the same time. So it's time for an MDM that's designed to help teaching and learning that empowers all stakeholders, not just IT, but teachers, students, and parents. So today we're going to be talking about Jamf School, and that's our device management solution that's laser focused on education. It's built to be simple, enhance the teacher and learning experiences while still being powerful and enabling IT to successfully manage devices. So let's have a quick think about what we mean by anywhere, anytime. So 24/7 learning is something maybe that is another term that's often used when we come to talk around these kind of things. But it's really that ability to allow the student to take up their learning experience wherever they are at any time, like it really says, anywhere, anytime. It's the ability for that student to really personalize their learning. So we can give them the tools that allow the students to learn and use them in a way that works for them. It isn't prescribed to them in some senses, and it really can be personalized that way. It can be that blended learning or flipped classroom experience as well. So maybe it's that you want your students to go away and do something and then bring that to class, and having access to that device all the time really helps with those kind of things. And especially the last couple of years, that's really shown us that we have to allow the students, and students can learn outside of the classroom. So to have access to a tool all the time really would help with that. But also we have the ownership. If a student has access to a device all the time, um, there's that sense of ownership on that device, and that really helps with the engagement with their own learning. Now, that being said, from a device management point of view, there are some challenges when it comes to 24/7 access to an iPad. We really have to start thinking about a few things. First one is, how do we manage the device? Okay, it's kind of that real kind of balance between over managing the device and under managing the device. As we said at the beginning here, we want to be able to enable the students to be creative without being a blocker, but also kind of put the power in the teacher's hands as well. We then have to think about what we want from a learning device, whether or not we want the students to use that as a personal device as well, which really helps with that ownership that we were talking around before. It's not just something that's used as a learning tool, but also their personal device. And then often, as we've said again at the beginning, parents really want the ability to start to help manage those devices whilst they're at home, whether that's from a learning aspect or whether that's just from the ability to say, hey, my child has had enough screen time today, I'd really like them to not be using the iPad now. So there are some challenges, but today we're going to have a look at how Jamf School might be able to overcome these challenges to really make this device powerful for children that have access to an iPad 24/7. We'll start off by looking at these first three challenges, which is our management, making it a learning device, and making it a personal device. So let's talk about managing device personas. So when we're thinking about managing devices, there'll definitely be certain things that we want to always have on that device, a base config if you like. Some things that doesn't matter whether the iPad is being used as a teaching tool, a personal tool, at home, at school, on the bus, it doesn't really matter. There'll be certain things that we want to make sure that the students can always have access to or don't have access to, as an example. So when it comes to really thinking about device management here, we want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what we want to have as our base config. Now that could just be some simple things along the lines of we never want the student to be able to create a VPN configuration, for example, or we want to make sure that they always have access to the school Wi-Fi when they're at school. It could be really simple, or it could be quite complex, but really we need to think about what that base config looks like. We then use additional management to really define the personas, and we do this with an additive approach. So for example, if we've got our base config, this might be exactly what we want the device to look like whilst the user is at home. And then when they come to school, we might want to add additional management to that. Maybe we don't want to see applications that are games or Netflix, for example, right? We can use this additional management to really add on top of this so we can define those personas really easily. One thing that we do with Jamf School that is really quite unique is we have something called time-based profiles. And this means that we can uh, add this additional management at predefined times during the day. So for example, school day runs from 9 till 3. We can make sure that this additional management is only applied during those times so that at home the device can be used as a personal device as well as a learning device if that's what you want to offer your students. And then finally, when we're thinking about management here, we've already mentioned that we have device personas, but it's really important that we understand what we want to do with these personas before you went ahead or were to go ahead with a project like this. It's really important to understand these are the base configurations, and this is the additional management, because it can be very easy to get this the wrong way around and the device is not to be in a state that you expect them to be. So with that, let's look at what we mean by these additional managements and this additive approach and how restrictions and management works on iPads in the first place. So here we have an iPad. We have a red config profile and a yellow config profile. Config profiles are basically just how we manage iPads. Now the red one could be the base one. That's something that's on there all of the time. Okay, and in the restrictions, we are saying you're allowed the camera. We might have this yellow restrictions profile, which would be our additive approach that we add at certain times of the day based on a time that says we cannot have the camera. Now, what happens here? One says yes and one says no. And it's important to understand this so that we can get the base config the right way around. What we don't want is for something to say we don't want the camera as a base restriction and then we'll allow it at certain times of the day. Because when we have this kind of result where we have conflicting profiles here, the most restrictive wins. So it's really important that you, as I said, really think about what you want with these device personas, but also really understand what you want in your base config. Okay, we can have two sets of restrictions on a device, and the most restrictive always wins. And that's really important to think about when we're thinking about our time-based profiles. Okay, now in terms of setting this up with Jamf School, it's super easy to configure. This is an example of our console that we can set up this time-based profile. Okay, so it's a few tick boxes. So as far as IT is concerned, this is a simple job, but will really impact both teachers and students. It literally tick the box to turn it on. We then say what times of the day we would like this profile to be added, so these extra restrictions or this extra management to be added, and when we want to end, and then the days of the week. And it's that simple. We've already added all of the management and all of the restrictions and config that we needed. We just simply say, I only want this at certain times of the day. What's even better with this is, as you'll be able to see from here, we can always apply profiles during the weekend if we wanted to, depending on your setup. But the big one here is they're not installing the profiles during configured holidays. So what we don't want to do is make this hard work for IT. Okay, and one of the best ways we can do this is to predefine configured holidays so you know when your breaks are during the year. So once IT has set this up, they can say, but during the 6 weeks holiday, for example, those restrictions that we would normally add between 9 and 3 during the school day, we don't want to add them during the summer break, because the kids are at home, they don't need to have the restrictions that we have for school. And what we don't want is parents trying to contact us during that period of time when we've got other projects on that's really time consuming over the summer holidays. And we want to make sure that the user gets the best experience. So it's kind of a set and forget. You pop in the holidays there beforehand. When you're setting up a time-based profile, you say, please don't configure these during the school holidays that we've popped in there. And off we go. We set and forget for that particular school year, or beyond, depending on how many holidays you want to pop in there. So to recap, when it comes to management, there are a couple of things to remember, right? Have that base configuration and understand which way round your restrictions work. The most restrictive wins. So really that base configuration should probably be the least restrictive profile that you have on that device, because you're going to continue to add to that in that additive measure with your config profiles. They can be done on a time base. So this is something that's super unique to Jamf School, these time-based profiles with just a tick of a button. There's no need for somebody to be logged into a console at a certain time of day to press buttons to make things work. This is something that we can set and forget with a few tick boxes. We can select days that we want this to happen, certain times of the day during the school week, for example. We can quite simply add additional management if we needed to for weekend management, okay, or equally not apply configuration at the weekend. And the same can be said about holiday management as well. And these are just purely tick boxes within the console. It's super easy to set up once you've already thought about, and this is the important part, that management and the way that you want a school persona and a persona for home. But as we said at the beginning there, that's not all, right? There are parent tools as well, or should I say parents are going to want tools. If that iPad goes home, parents are going to want to be able to manage how their child learns at home, but also maybe, like I say, some just additional management tasks. So again, something that's unique to Jamf School is we have a parent app or a parent tool for parents when iPads go home. The app itself lives on a parent device, so it means it's not on the child's device. And the important part here is the school defines when the parent can access this tool. So it's not like a parent could start to accidentally restrict things during a school day, meaning that that device isn't usable for that child during the school day. It just means that they have access to it, again, at times that are defined by the school. And what can you do with the tool? Well, it's kind of cool because you can do pretty much all the things we've just spoke about already. So we can manage restrictions. That means that we can say, hey, I don't want you to have maybe iMessage or FaceTime whilst you're doing homework. We can manage apps as well. Again, so I don't mind you having Netflix on your device as an example when it's your personal time, but actually between these particular hours every day, I want you to do homework, so we're going to remove Netflix from the device. We can do this on genres as well, so we can make it really easy to just say, hey, anything that's categorized as a game, let's get rid of. The nice thing here as well is the general rule of thumb is if you're going to do this for your child, you're going to do it on a daily basis, right? So you're not just going to say, hey, here's a homework hour for today. You might say that we're going to do this on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday. So we can create device rules so that you, again, can, like the IT at school, can set and forget some of these things. And then the app itself is available for iOS and Android, or if the school allows, you can access this through a web browser as well, which means you just need a device that has internet access. So why don't we go and have a look at what this kind of looks like for both the parent and the child. So on the screen here, we've got a parent device, a parent iPad on the left, and a student iPad on the right. So first thing that we're going to do is just open up the parent app on the device. You can see we have a child already linked to the app here. When we click on the child, we get our main screen here. This is our sort of main hub. This is where we'll do all the kind of things. Now you can see from the very start here, we've got some categories that we can just toggle on and off. So you'll notice on the screen of the student, for example, we've got all sorts of apps here. We've got a bit of Google Classroom, but we've also got things like Facebook and Messenger, Netflix. There's also Pokemon Go. There's a few bits and pieces here. So let's see what happens And this is all in real time as well. Let's see what happens when we start to toggle some of these switches. So let's toggle off the first category here. Notice how on the iPad, the apps disappear. Now they're not deleted, they simply just disappear until you toggle the switch again. But as you can see, as we go through these categories, this device starts looking more like a teaching, or sort of to say a learning device over a personal device. So, as a parent, you can really start to guide your child whilst they're at home, much like the teachers can in their classrooms at school. You saw when I toggled those switches back on, the apps came back. I can also do things like stop the camera or Safari. You'll see they'll disappear in a second. But normally this would perhaps be used for messages and FaceTime during homework hours as well. And again, when you toggle the switches back again, the apps just reappear. So as I said, we're not deleting, we're just hiding them to make this device useful for that particular task at hand. So the next thing that we can do is something that's called an app lock, and we can decide for how long this app lock happens. So again, I might decide that I want my child to do homework for the next 2 hours, so I can set a 2-hour limit, and then I simply scroll through all the applications that I would want the student or my child to be able to use during that homework hour. Now that could be something, or 2 hours in this case, that could be something that has been predefined to you by the school, or you might need to ask your child what that looks like. But the point is, those tools are just there for that student, so they're not distracted by anything else. And you'll be able to see on the screen there is a countdown timer, so you can go into the parent app and see how long that device config is going to be there for. If you have added too many apps or not enough apps, you can go back into there as well and just add the additional things without needing to unlock the device fully and then lock it back up again. You can see measures just appeared there when we add that. Now, if your child completes their homework first before the timer disappears, again, not a problem at all. You can remove those configs whenever you want, basically when the child is ready. And you can see there the iPad turns back into what I class as a normal iPad, so normal usage. There's some personal things on there as well, ready for the child to do whatever they want to with that device going forward. So that's one thing that we can do in terms of guiding your child or the student when it comes to the learning experience. But like I say, what's really important and what's nice with the parent app is that this gives the parent that additional management of that device as well outside of that learning experience. So here we've just got the parent app again, on the parent iPad. So we're going to go away into the parent app again. We're going to click on that particular child. Now this time we're going to hit the device rules tab. Remember, I said this is like a set and forget. So these are pre-configured rules that I've set up, and I can click on any one of these rules and kind of use them in an ad hoc kind of way. So you can see the top one here. That I've got is like a timeout or like a relaxation kind of cool down type of thing. Maybe my child has had too much time on a particular game. I can see that they're getting a little bit stressed around it, a little bit irate. I have got a son and he gets very angry with games sometimes when he starts to lose. Might just want to time out and say for the next 30 minutes, you know what, you're not going to have like maybe the games or those kind of things, and you can define what that looks like. So I can use them in that ad hoc way, so it stops me from having to go into the app lock and find the same apps that I want to lock down every time. I've already predefined those rules and I just hit go when I want to do that. But also that's great that I can have it on that ad hoc way, but I can also use these date and time rules here. As you can see, I can create a couple of different rules based on different categories and things, but we're going to go date and time here. We can select certain categories like at that first screen, or we can click custom, and custom gives me the ability to go in there and really look at what applications it is that I'm going to have. On this occasion, I'm just going to select the clock. And then I get to choose what days and what times I want to add this particular restriction. Okay, so I don't have to keep coming in and turning it on and off. It will just happen automatically in the background. So here you can see basically it's school days or school nights from a particular time till a particular at night to a particular time in the morning that I'm going to restrict to just the clock. Why would I do that? Well, this is kind of like a bedtime restriction, I guess. So again, I have a child, my son. Sometimes he likes to play on his iPad before he goes to bed and watch some YouTube videos or whatever. But I noticed that he doesn't always put it down when he's supposed to. Now with this particular rule, it locks down to just the clock at 10 o'clock. on any school night. Why just the clock? Well, with the clock, of course, he can set himself an alarm to get up for school the next day. So I'm not just using this tool as a learning tool, or I'm not just using the parent app to help create a learning tool. I'm also able to use this to manage the device whilst it's at home. So we really are, bringing in the parent stakeholder to this iPad project that we'd be running in the school. Of course, once you've created these rules, it's very easy to be able to edit them as well. There is an edit button. You can go in there and add and remove different apps. You haven't got to start all over again. You can see if I wanted to add something to the clock as well as bedtime at the bedtime hour or whatever, I can just do that as I please. And you've got the little red no entry signs there as well, so you can remove them anytime that you want. So it really is a useful tool for the parents when those iPads do go home, when we're looking to enable an anywhere, anytime kind of learning experience with iPad and Jamf School. So with that, let's just quickly have a recap about what we've spoken about today. So we really have thought about these challenges of 24/7 access to an iPad, right? We need to make sure it's an appropriate amount of management for the right time of day. We need to be able to make sure that the device is useful for learning and is a tool during certain times of the day, but we might want to give access to the child to a more personal device at other times of the day. And parents really need to be able to have those tools to help engage with the device when the device is at home. And with Jamf School, we can tick all of these boxes. We can ensure that the device is managed correctly. We can ensure that at certain times of the day it is a learning tool, and that other times of the day it's a personal device. And hey, when it is at home and when it is more of a personal device, we can give all the great tools that IT and teachers have within the school environment at home as well. And that's us when it comes to the challenges of 24/7 access with iPad. It really is just about management, making sure it's an appropriate learning device. If you want to give personal experience, how do we make that the case? And we're giving parents the right tools to help manage those devices whilst they're at home as well. So with that, thank you very much for coming and listening to this presentation, and I hope to see you again soon.